So here's an example of using Excel for instruction. Everyone's used Excel to keep track of grades or numbers as a teacher, but you want your students to actually use Excel to learn something. So in this particular example, you've got students divided up into two groups. Group 1 has a jar of candy that has 24 pieces of candy in it, and Group 2 has another jar with 24 pieces of candy in it. You've kind of stacked the deck, so you want them to figure out which one's bigger, 2/3 or 3/4. So in Group 1's jar with 24 pieces of candy, you've got some yellow candy and some orange candy. And 2/3 of the candy is yellow and 1/3 is orange. And they're going to take them out and count them and see who has more, the group with 2/3 or the group with 3/4. So you're going to have them first keep track of the candy and look at that, but then you're going to have them graph it because there's a different way of looking at it. They can look at piles and see the piles are bigger, but depending on how they make the piles, one pile might actually look larger than another to some students. So let's say in this version of Excel, I've got a word problem and it spells out what's going on. I know everyone loves word problems. So in this Excel spreadsheet, for my example to show you, I've got 3 different tabs. So this is the student's version where you've got the numbers empty, but you'll have in here, you'll have formulas that will add the numbers up for them. And then I'm going to show you how to use data validation to make sure that the students have counted it out correctly. So let's look at the second tab. See how you can go back and forth between, at the bottom here, the student version. And you can change the names of these tabs by double clicking on them. Right, I think usually it says chart 1 or chart 2, something like that. So I'm going to this one where I've had the students count them out. And in my stacking of the jars, there were 16 yellow, 18 orange for a total of 24. And so here, group number 1 has charted them out, and then group number 2 is on a separate, could be on a separate computer, charting theirs out. And so they can talk to each other and say, hey, group 1, you had 16 and we had 18, and they were the same number of pieces of candy in the jar, so you can see that 18 is bigger than 16, okay? But there's another way to do it. So when the students are graphing them out, I'm going to go to the Graphed Out tab and show you how to make a graph. You'll have to give students specific instructions on how to click and drag, do things like that. So I'm clicking and dragging to select these cells. I'm going to insert a pie chart, click the first option, and there's group number 1. So at this point, you might be doing this yourself. You can take the 2 groups, you can show it on a projector to them, and they can say, all right, you can see that group 1 has 16, group 2 has 18. It's pretty obvious that group 2 has 18, has 2 more than group 1. But then let's graph group 2. So I select the cells I want to graph, insert a pie chart, same one. Now I can compare. It's another representation of which one is bigger. So I can see that group 2 has more than group 1. This is bigger than this one. This number is bigger than this one. But not everyone learns things the same way. A student looking at this may resonate more with a student than this. So it's just more than one way to look at things. Plus, it gives your brain more than one place to store the information. I don't put a lot of faith into the learning styles because there's not a lot of empirical evidence. Excuse my phone. There's not a lot of empirical evidence about it, but students do have preferences for how they like to learn, and so students looking at numbers may prefer to look at graphs. Typically, people with visual preferences have good spatial relations. So it's not just that you enjoy looking at pictures, it's that you have good spatial relations. But again, there's not a lot of real hard evidence about that. I digress. So let's get back to the graph. Now we have students count out and put in their numbers. You've already included a formula, so let me erase this and I'll show you how to make a formula in case you haven't done that before. To make a formula, you have to click in the cell where you want the answer to land. Go up to the formula bar. For this one, we're going to sum. Sometimes the machine thinks for you, so it's asking you, do you want to sum these two? And you can look up here and verify I'm summing cell B11. Yep. And C11. Yep, that's what I want. So just press enter. And now you could type in the number 24, but this sums. Because when you change this, let's say a student accidentally counted out 17. Now you can say, oops, the total is wrong. And this is changing the graphs as I'm changing the numbers too. So you can add data validation here to make sure, because you know what the answer is going to be, to make sure that the students have counted it out right and they're going to go through the exercise correctly. So in this cell, I know that I'm going to have 16. So I go to data. Let me get out and get back in. Data validation here. I've got 3 tabs I have to fill out. The first one, I know I'm going to have a whole number, and it's going to be equal to 16. And that's the only number that's right. If they put any number other than 16 in there, you'll give them a message. And that if they make a mistake, that'll be the error alert message. And you can say something like, count again. I wouldn't give them the answer, but you can give them a hint. So you can say that this, maybe you can say this is a hint instead. Right? The input message is what's going to show when they click inside of the cell. It's going to remind them what they're supposed to do. So this is another hint of count the number of yellow candies or jelly beans. And then click on OK. So what's going to happen when the students go to count, it's going to give them a hint. Count the number of yellow candies. And if they put the wrong number in, because remember I said it has to be 16, so if they put 8 in, they're going to get the error message that you typed in. So you can retry. They count again. They get 16. Yay, that's correct. So they won't be prompted to enter again. So you can see how formulas and data validation and graphing can actually help students learn a concept.